Okay, so for part two, we're going to talk about some basic ways to change the way the space is visualized and to change the way that you move around the space. So now we need to use this window on the left called the console window. The window on top, actually, you can type into it, but nothing's ever going to happen when you do that. This prints out the history of commands that you'll have typed as you interact with the software. The bottom window lets you type in messages and commands, and when you're ready, press the Enter key, at which point it will print to the top window. This is nice because then it keeps a history of all of your commands, and you can actually highlight, use the typical, copy, cut, paste commands, and paste it back into your window to save you time if you want to re-enter a command or a series of commands. But you can erase everything here if you want to as well. Okay, so first thing is you'll notice that when you look around the space, you see all of the trichords and then their prime forms in parentheses. This is default. You can visualize also their normal forms. And we'll get to that in a second, but you'll see that we've got all the prime forms underneath. This all gets dynamically interpreted, and that's that. So let's say I want to emphasize prime forms and not the trichords. I can type in the command toggle size, one word, with a semicolon. At the end of a command, typically you'll want to put a semicolon. In some cases you don't have to, but I'd say it's good practice and it'll never break it. At the end of a command, include a semicolon as a kind of way to say the statement is done, this is the end. Then when you're ready, you press the Enter key, and it does what it's supposed to do. In this case, it toggles the size. Now the trichord is small and the prime form, or the set class, is large, which makes it a little easier to see how the set classes exist in space. So this diagonal right here that I found is all 005 set class, right? Now, maybe I don't want to display the prime form. Maybe I've discovered, okay, this line represents all members of the 00. Well, not all, but these are all members of the 005 set class. Maybe I want then to see what their normal forms are, and for that I use the display type command. Display type, one word followed by another word, either normal or prime, and then a semicolon. So display type normal, if you look at the window, toggles. You still have the trichord name, but now you've got the normal form of it as well. So 406 is 046, 316 is 136, so on. All the normal forms. Let's go up, get a little closer here to the origin. Okay, so there's 012. Alright, so you can, if I want to go back to prime, I can type in display type and then write prime, and it toggles back. Maybe I want to toggle the size again. Now I've got my trichords. And then maybe, let's move on to the next thing. You guys get the point. Alright, so another feature of the space is that it's infinitely wrapping, if you may notice. We talked about that last time. So if you can turn that off, it's the default. But if you don't want it to infinitely wrap, then you type in wrap space followed by an on or the word on or the word off. So I'll turn it off. On is the default. Wrap space off. And then you may have to look around and find the original cluster. There it is. It's above me. And this represents the space without wrapping. It's going to be a huge, in the current state of the space, it's going to be a huge square, cube, with all of the trichords, including multisets. So the origin of the space is a multiset. That's 0, 0, 0. And then moving in all directions until it gets to the end, to 11 in every direction. And then it stops, and it doesn't wrap. And if you move far enough away, it stops rendering. I'm kind of cutting off how many trichords it renders to speed up the processing. So that's wrap space. And there are several different ways to visualize the space. So right now we've got multisets enabled. We can turn that off by typing in multisets off. Multisets on or multisets off. If I type this and then press enter, now it gets rid of all multisets. So I've got a tetrahedron here of only trichords without any repetitive integers. So starting with 0, 1, 2 and going up to 0, 10, 11, and then on the other end 9, 10, 11. And there it is. If I move back, you'll see it's a tetrahedron. That's without multisets. So if I enable multisets, again, now I've got my cube. There's another feature. If multisets are on, you can choose to turn permutational equivalence on. By default, permutational equivalence is not on in the space, meaning 0, let's look down, 0, 0, 1 is not equal to 0, 1, 0. So it renders both of them. It treats them as if they're unique trichords. That is, permutations of the same numbers are not equivalent. So we can turn permutation on by typing in the word equivalence and then on or off. If I turn equivalence on, that means that it will only render one version of each set. And in this case, it considers 0, 0, 1 to be the original version. 0, 1, 0 no longer renders. And then we get another type of tetrahedron, but this time it's including some multisets, but without any repetition of the same three numbers in a trichord. So if I now turn off multisets, you'll see the tetrahedron without multisets, and then if I turn multisets back on, whoops, I misspelled it. Now I've got the tetrahedron with some multisets, but without permutational equivalent trichords. And now if I turn equivalence back off, which is the default, I'll get the whole grid again. You can do compound operations, by the way. So let's say I want to turn equivalence on and then toggle size. You can do this by actually just writing a semicolon and then writing the command right next to it, or for more clarity, you can press return, go to the next line, and then write a bunch of commands, each ending with semicolons, and then press enter. And it did a compound operation. I turned equivalence on, and I toggled the size so that the prime forms are displayed. Okay, so that's equivalence, multisets, wrap space, changing which what type of text is rendered larger and smaller, toggling the size, a few other things. Let me turn multisets. Let me turn equivalence off, and let me wrap the space. So wrap space on. There we go. It renders faster when you wrap the space on. I might be able to improve on that later. Okay, so if I want to change, I mentioned in the first part that you can fly at different speeds by pressing the space bar. Every time you press the space bar, it toggles between the slow speed and the fast speed. You can customize these slow and fast speeds, and the documentation will tell you what the defaults are. The commands are speed for the slow speed, and F speed, the letter F with the word speed for fast speed. And it ranges between 0 and whatever number, and you'll see what these numbers mean when you try them out. The default is 10 for the slow speed, so if I say speed, let's say 2, semicolon, semicolon, then now when I fly, it's going really slow. Now, let me set the slow speed to 15 so you can see the difference. Now when I fly, it's going a little bit faster. So that's the speed that's my slow speed. Now the speed that happens when I press a spacebar will be my fast speed, F speed, and I can set this, it's defaulted to 50, but maybe I want to go really fast, I'll set it to 100. And now I'm going slow, and when I press a spacebar, it's going really quick. It's kind of hard to see it, we're going so fast actually. So let me go back down to maybe 30 for my fast speed. So here's slow, and here's fast. So my fast speed is a lot slower than before. So you can kind of tweak how fast or slow you want to move into space. In addition to that, you can control the smoothness or the easing of the camera as you move around. How smooth is the movement? How much does the camera kind of lag behind your mouse as you rotate your head? That's called easing. So the command is easing, and then a number between 0 and 1. Actually, nothing. 0 won't be allowed. It would be 0.001. And that the lower the number, the more easing, the slower the camera moves. So if I type easing 0.05, semicolon. Now when I look around, you'll notice that I'll move my mouse and then stop my mouse, and the camera kind of lags behind and takes some time to catch up. That's going to allow for much smoother camera movement. less crisp, but maybe better if it's on a large screen to avoid nausea. So if I turn easing to 1, that basically means no easing, totally crisp. It just follows my mouse around. That's probably not ideal. The default is easing 0.3. You may never want to change this. And that's with a little bit of easing. It's crisp enough, but it also smooths it enough that you probably won't get nauseous when you're working on your own computer. So those are some more basic controls. We'll work on a few more in the next tutorial.